The Cathari Dominion had explored space for thousands of years. They had seen dead worlds, broken cities, and empty stations drifting in silence. To them, it was normal. Intelligent life always destroyed itself. That was what history had taught them. So when their survey ship entered an unknown star system and detected a strange object near a shattered moon, they were not excited. They were bored. At first, they thought it was just debris, maybe a broken mining station. But as they moved closer, their sensors showed something different. It was a warship, long, heavy, scarred, and still whole. The ship floated quietly in the dark, turning slowly above the cracked surface of the moon. Its metal hull was burned in many places. Deep holes showed where weapons had torn through it. Some parts looked melted and repaired again, as if someone had fixed it in the middle of a battle. Admiral Sarak of the Cathari stood in his command chamber and watched the image on the main screen. "No life signs?" he asked.
"None, Admiral," the scanner officer replied. "No power readings either."
"It appears dead." The warship did not match any known design. It looked simple and rough compared to Cathari ships. Large cannons were attached along its body, not energy weapons, but solid projectile launchers. Old-style weapons, brutal ones. On the side of the hull, faded white letters were still visible. UEF. Valiant. Cathari language systems translated it slowly. "United Earth Fleet," the computer announced. The command room became quiet.
"Earth?" Admiral Sarak repeated. "No such civilization exists in our records."
Every advanced species was logged and studied, yet this Earth had no file.
That was strange. Very strange.
Sarak ordered a boarding team to investigate. The shuttle crossed the empty space and attached to the ship's damaged docking port. The metal was cold. Burn marks covered the airlock doors. It looked like something had tried to break inside or escape. The Cathari soldiers entered carefully. Inside, the corridors were dark. Emergency lights flickered weakly, powered by dying backup systems. The air was thin but breathable. Gravity was still active, though unstable. The walls were scratched and blackened by fire, but that was not what made the soldiers stop. Handprints, hundreds of them, all along the walls, large and small. Some clear, some smeared, some made with blood. The Cathari commander felt something he had not felt in a long time. Unease. The prints were not artistic. They were not decoration. They were messy and desperate. It looked as if many beings had pressed their hands against the walls during extreme shaking, as if they were trying to stay standing while the ship was breaking apart.
There were no bodies, no skeletons.
No signs of escape pods launching. It was as if the crew had simply vanished. They moved toward the bridge. The doors were half melted. The control panels were destroyed. Seats were broken. Deep claw marks covered parts of the floor, though scans showed no known Cathari weapon had caused them. One console was still active, barely. The lead technician connected his device and began copying the data. Fragments of a final log appeared on the screen. A human face flickered into view, round features, forward-facing eyes, skin covered in sweat and ash. Behind him, alarms screamed. The message was broken and full of static. "Hold the line. Buy them time. For Earth." The screen went black. Silence filled the bridge. The Cathari did not understand the language completely, but the tone was clear. The being had known he was going to die, and he had accepted it. Admiral Sarak received the report aboard his ship.
He listened to the broken recording 3 times.
"Collect everything," he ordered. "We will study this species." As the boarding team prepared to leave, one young soldier looked back at the dark corridor filled with handprints. "Admiral," he said quietly over comms, "this ship did not drift here by accident. Explain." The soldier swallowed. "The navigation logs show final coordinates. It was heading toward our territory." There was a pause. "Perhaps it was fleeing," Sarak said. But even as he spoke, Something deep in his mind felt wrong. Because far inside the silent heart of the Valiant, hidden beneath layers of damaged systems, a small black box core suddenly activated, and for the first time in centuries, it began to send a signal. The warship Valiant was carefully pulled into Cathari space. It was placed inside a high-security research station. Scientists, engineers, and military officers gathered to study it. No one spoke loudly. Even the bravest officers felt something strange about the human ship. It did not feel dead. It felt waiting. Admiral Sarak stood behind a glass wall as technicians worked on the ship's main data core. Sparks flew as they forced open sealed compartments. Human systems were different from Cathari systems. Simpler, but strong. Finally, one scientist looked up. "We have accessed the memory logs, Admiral. Play them," Sarak ordered. The main screen lit up. At first, it showed stars. Then it zoomed toward a planet. The planet was not Earth. It looked damaged. Storms covered half its surface. Large areas were dark and lifeless. A computer voice spoke in human language. The Cathari translator worked quickly. Planet Threx. 1. Native species facing extinction event. Atmospheric collapse at 62%. The image changed. Strange, tall beings appeared on screen. Thin bodies, large black eyes. Their skin looked dry and cracked. They were weak. The Threx. Sarah narrowed his eyes. The Threx were known in Cathari records. A small, failing species from the outer regions. They were considered unimportant.
The recording continued. Human ships arrived in orbit.
Not warships. Cargo ships. Medical ships. Terraforming platforms. Humans in protective suits were shown helping the Threx. They repaired atmospheric processors. They delivered food. They built shelters. The Cathari room grew quiet. "Why?" one scientist whispered. No one answered. Then the recording changed again. Warning alarms sounded. A new fleet appeared on screen. Large warships from different empires. Ships Sarah recognized. They had come to claim Threx territory before it became stable again. A message from the coalition played. "This system is under new ownership. Withdraw immediately." Negative. "This world is under our protection." The Cathari officers exchanged uneasy looks. The screen showed 12 human warships jumping into position around the planet. One of them was the Valiant. The enemy fleet was 3 times larger. Weapons fired. Bright beams of energy tore across space. Explosions filled the darkness. One human ship was hit and split in half. It did not retreat. It rammed an enemy cruiser instead. The room became silent, except for the sound of battle. The footage showed human crew members running through burning corridors. Sparks fell from the ceiling. Smoke filled the air. One human officer shouted orders while blood ran down his face. "Hold the line! Keep firing!" The Cathari translator struggled to keep up. Another human manually loaded a large cannon. Because the autoloader had failed, his hands were shaking. The ship was on fire. Outside, the Valiant turned its body sideways, placing its thick armored side between the enemy fleet and the planet below. It became a shield. Enemy beams hit it again and again. Parts of its hull melted, but it did not move. Casualty rate, 87%. The human computer voice said calmly. Still, the ship kept firing. The battle lasted 9 hours. 9 hours against impossible odds. Finally, the screen showed small Threx evacuation ships escaping into deep space. The humans had bought them time. The last image of the Valiant appeared.
Engines destroyed. Weapons offline.
Hull breaking apart. Yet it still rotated slowly, blocking one final blast aimed at the planet. Then, white light filled the screen. The recording ended. No one in the Cathari station spoke. Admiral Sarek felt something cold in his chest. "Probability of victory?" he asked quietly.
A scientist checked the data.
Less than 1%, Admiral. And they stayed? Yes. Another officer spoke carefully. The Threks are not allied with Earth in any record. No trade agreement. No military treaty. Serac stared at the frozen image of the burning human ship. They fought, he said slowly, for a species that was not their own. A young analyst swallowed.
Admiral, there is more.
He opened a hidden file inside the black box core. It showed recent system activity.
Very recent. The Valiant had not been drifting for centuries.
Someone had repaired it. Someone had reactivated it. And the final log entry was only 3 cycles old. Admiral Serac's blood ran cold. Track all outgoing signals from this vessel, he ordered. The technician's hands trembled as he checked the system. There is an active transmission, Admiral.
Destination?
The technician looked up slowly.
Unknown.
Deep space, long range. In the silent darkness of the station, the dead warship was no longer just a relic. It was a message, and somewhere far beyond Cathari borders, someone had just received it. The signal from the Valiant spread faster than anyone expected. Cathari sensors picked it up first. Then, every nearby system started detecting strange pulses in deep space frequencies. The transmission was not in their language. It was human, clear, loud, and impossible to ignore. Admiral Serac watched the readings on the command console. His claws tapped nervously on the edge.
It is...
A warning, he said quietly. Warning to whom? Asked a young officer. Sarah did not answer. He already had a bad feeling. The signal contained images, coordinates, and text. The black box core had been recording continuously. Every repair, every movement, every damage the ship had suffered was catalogued. And now, centuries later, the Valiant had activated a protocol. A human voice echoed through the room. It was calm, firm, and clear. The Cathari translator struggled to keep up. "This is the United Earth Fleet," the voice said. "If this beacon is found, humanity endures. To those who threaten the helpless, we are coming." But the meaning was enormous. Serac felt a chill. The Cathari had never met a species that acted without calculation. Every attack, every defense, every alliance was measured in numbers, profit, or survival. Humanity ignored all of that. They acted, and they acted without reason that anyone else could understand. Technicians analyzed the signal further. It had originated recently, not centuries ago. Someone had repaired the Valiant and reactivated the black box core. Someone had intentionally sent it here, into Cathari space. A junior officer spoke, trembling. "This is no accident. They placed the ship here."
They wanted us to see it. Serac did not respond.
His mind raced. Humanity was not just a distant, unknown species anymore. They were a presence. A threat. Something that could act across space, unpredictably, and with purpose. The analysts continued to scroll through the archives inside the Valiant. Each record showed humans pushing themselves to impossible limits, fighting through broken systems, manually firing weapons after the computer failed, standing on burning decks to keep the ship operational. It was beyond calculation, beyond reason. One file caught the eye of a young engineer. It showed the final moments of the battle at Threx. 4. The Valiant's hull was failing, energy shields gone, engines destroyed, yet it still rotated to protect the planet. Crew members ran through smoke, fire, and debris, still fighting. One human even used his own body to block a blast that would have destroyed a control panel. They risked everything for a species they have no treaty with, the engineer whispered. "Yes," Serac said grimly. "And now they are sending a warning. Not just to us, but to anyone who harms the weak."
Outside the research station, Cathari scouts detected strange distortions at the edge of the Dominion.
Gravity waves, warp fluctuations, and unusual energy readings. The fleet-size anomalies were moving toward Cathari territory. "Admiral," a young officer said nervously, "they could be coming here. Right now." He had studied thousands of species. He had fought in hundreds of battles. He had never faced anything like this. The human ships were not attacking yet. They were watching, waiting,
Judging. And that was worse.
because the Cathari knew the truth about humans. They could be terrifying when provoked, but they were even more terrifying when defending the helpless. Sarah quartered full readiness. All ships in orbit were prepared, weapons charged, engines ready. But deep inside, every officer knew it might not be enough. The Valiant's records were proof. Humans did not fight for survival. They fought for others, for strangers, for the weak. And now, humanity had sent a message. We see. We remember. We are coming. The Admiral felt an icy fear settle in his bones. The Cathari had never faced a species like this. Somewhere in the galaxy, in the void beyond recorded space, the Valiant had sent its signal, and the Cathari understood the meaning clearly. This was not a request, it was a warning. And when humanity arrived, there would be no room for error. Serac looked at the dark screen, showing the coordinates of the approaching fleet anomalies. The Cathari had a choice, to act first or wait. But even as he considered it, he knew the truth.
Humans did not wait, and the Dominion would soon learn that a species who fought for strangers was a species who would never forgive.
The room was silent, except for the low hum of the black box core, still broadcasting its warning across the stars. Somewhere, far from Cathari space, humanity was watching, and they had already decided who they would protect next. If you want, I can now write part 4 in the same style, tying everything together with a shocking and haunting HFY climax, where humans force the aliens to reckon with their morality. The Cathari fleet trembled in orbit. Every officer stared at the readings from the edge of their sensors. Strange distortions, massive energy spikes, and sudden jumps through subspace. They all pointed to one conclusion. The humans were coming. Admiral Serac clenched his claws around the console. He had faced fleets of rival empires, asteroid storms, and solar flares. But nothing had ever made him feel fear like this. "They are not attacking," a lieutenant said, voice shaky. "They are sending ships, relief ships, medical platforms, terraforming vessels." In their minds, a fleet that could annihilate the Cathari would not bring aid. The answer came slowly, as the logs of the Valiant played again. Humanity did not strike first. They fought to defend the helpless. And when the helpless were safe, humans delivered medicine, supplies, and hope, not death, not conquest. Serac realized the terrifying truth. Humans were unpredictable, not because they were weak, but because they were stronger than anything the Cathari had ever imagined. A communication beacon blinked in the middle of the fleet. It was the humans. Serac ordered the translator to decode it. The message was simple, but every word carried weight. We do not forget those who stand against the helpless. We do not forgive those who profit from extinction. Choose who you will be. The Cathari officers froze. Every action, every war, every conquest they had justified suddenly felt small, because humans had seen the cost of cruelty. And they remembered. The fleet slowly began scanning the humans' incoming ships. They were massive, but organized. Medical frigates, repair vessels, supplies from multiple worlds. No visible weapons, yet the Cathari knew the truth. They had already seen the Valiant. Humans had weapons, yes, but their greatest weapon was their will, their courage, their determination to act for others. Sarah felt his chest tighten. He had always believed in deterrence. Firepower. Numbers. Strategy. But the humans did not need numbers. They did not need strategy. They fought because they would not allow injustice to go unchallenged. The Cathari convened a council. Their advisors debated. Some urged war. Some urged retreat. Some suggested diplomacy. But every voice trembled. Humans were already proving something no one in the galaxy had understood before. They made morality into a force stronger than fleets. Serac stood before the council, silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. "We cannot fight them. We have seen what they are willing to do for the helpless, And if they decide we are guilty, there is no mercy, only reckoning. The council was silent. The truth was undeniable. A signal came again from the humans. This time, it contained records of the Threx War, every attack, every act of cruelty, every battle. And then a list, names of empires, individuals, and commanders who had participated. One name glowed on the screen, the Cathari Dominion. The room fell silent. The Cathari had supplied weapons to a minor Threx coalition long ago, a small, forgotten act. But humanity did not forget. The humans did not fire. They waited. They offered choice, act with honor, or face consequences. There was no denying it. There was no denying it. Humanity had power. Not just firepower, but moral power. The ability to make even the greatest empires account for their actions. Slowly, the Cathari sent their response, an agreement. A promise to redirect industry toward restoration, to protect weaker species, to atone for past mistakes. The humans acknowledged it. Then, without fanfare, they deployed aid ships to the damaged systems across Cathari space. Medical teams worked, engineers repaired ecosystems, and food shipments reached hundreds of worlds. And still the Valiant's final log echoed in the Cathari fleet. The images of humans burning on the ship's deck while holding the line for strangers. A species that weaponized empathy. Even after the humans departed, long after the treaties were signed, the Cathari could not forget. In every academy, in every home, the footage of the Valiant's sacrifice was shown, not as propaganda, not as celebration. As a warning, somewhere in the galaxy, humanity was still watching for distress signals. Still waiting for the helpless to call. And the Cathari knew this truth deep in their bones. If humanity came for you, you had better hope you were innocent. Because the humans did not fight for profit, for conquest, or for glory. They fought for what was right, and that made them unstoppable.